In this video, I'm going to talk about how to create your own type of object. Oh, it's going to be very exciting. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at the tester, and then I'll show you the class which actually defines the object. But I just want you to get used to this syntax, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm doing. So in this first line, I'm actually creating an object, and the type of object is called student. Yeah, I guess I defined a student object somewhere, and we'll look at that. So I'm creating a student object named S1. This is just a variable name. I could have called it pizza if I wanted to. But so I have a student object called S1, and it is a new student. And in quotes, I put Bob. I guess that's the name of the student. This is the same syntax that you would use if you were creating a new string. You could say string S1 equals new string Bob if you wanted to. And then underneath it, I'm running methods on this new object that I created. On S1, I'm running a method called getName, and then I'm running a method called toString. And those are returning information about my object. And we could actually look, I already ran this, so we could actually look at what's going on. Where did this Bob come from? Well, that came from my first print statement. So I guess S1.getName is a method that returns the name of this particular object. I guess S1.toString returns a bunch of information about that object, the name and the test grades. Well, Bob's test grades are 0 initially. Well, I haven't set anything yet. And so when I run this method getAverage, it prints out Bob's average, which is 0. Underneath it, I'm running a method which sets test1 to a 90, and then I'm setting test2 to a 95 and test3 to a 91. I hope I said that correctly. So I'm set test1, set test2, and set test3 must be methods that I wrote when I defined this object. And we're going to look at that in just a minute. And then I'm running this toString method again, and then this is Bob's average, of course, again. So here I've set the test grades, remember, and then I'm running toString, which returns information about Bob plus his test grades, and then this is Bob's average. All right. Then underneath it, I've created another student. You can make as many students as you want, just like you can make as many strings as you want. They're objects. So I'm making another student object named S2 because it's the second string object. Again, I could call this anything I wanted to. And this is a new student, Sue. And here, this is a little bit different because I'm creating Sue. I'm constructing this new object, and I'm passing it initially 3 grades. I didn't do that with Bob. All right, we're going to take a look at this in a moment, and then I'm running a toString method, and then I'm running a getAverage method on S2. And there's Sue's grades, and there's her average. All right, I'm going to just maybe even want to pause the video for a moment and really think about what I've done here. I've created a new object, and then I'm running methods on those objects, just like you did with strings. Now we're going to look at the class that defines this object. Yeah. And that class, of course, is called student, right? This is a student class here because if you go back to the tester, I'm creating a student object. That's the type of object. So let's take a look at student. All right. So at the top, this should be no surprise. There are 3 variables here. Now, it's customary when you define variables at the top of a class like this, you make them private, which means that they cannot be accessed by classes outside of this one. And we're going to talk more about that. I just like to introduce all of this stuff. So of course, a student has a variable called name, which is a string. And then it has 3 integers called tests. Well, that makes sense. Remember I was setting test1, test2, and test3. So yeah, that's it. A student has a name and 3 tests. Okay. Underneath it, I have a method here. And this is a special kind of method. I shouldn't have scrolled down there. This method is special because it has the same name as the class. The name of this method is student. The name of the class is student. This method is the method that gets run when we first create the object. So when I say student S1 equals new student, it's running the method named student, right? That should make sense. So this method that has the same name as the class is actually called a constructor method because it allows somebody to construct one of these types of objects. And you can see the input right here, the parameter that's getting passed in is n, which is a string, and I'm setting the name. So right here, I'm saying take take n and set name to n. Name, of course, is one of these fields up here. These are called instance fields. Okay. Actually, let's skip down to student 2. When I made student 2, notice I constructed it differently. Right? I'm constructing that with a name and 3 grades. Well, Java's clever in this way anyway. It looked for a constructor with a name with, well, a string variable and then 3 integer variables. Right? That's how I could have 2 methods with the same name. You could do this with any 2 methods or multiple methods. They don't have to be constructors, but you can have more than one method with the same name as long as the list of parameters is different. Java can figure out which one of those methods you're trying to run. As long as they have different method signatures, sometimes this is referred to as. So here when I constructed Sue, of course I passed in her name and 3 test grades, and you can see that it's a very simple method. I'm setting name to n and the 3 test grades to T1, T2, and T3. Those are the parameters that I'm passing in, and I'm setting these instance variables to those. Okay, the rest of this is going to be quite simple. You remember there were a bunch of other methods. There was a method called getName. All that does is return the name. Remember, name, this is a little weird. These instance variables, or these fields up here, these are fields that these are sometimes referred to as attributes. They are characteristics of this class. Every student has a name and 3 tests associated with them. These variables are global to the class. They just can't be used outside of this class. I hope that's making sense. I know I say I hope that's making sense a lot, but I do hope it's making sense. So this was the method that returned the student's name. This was the method that set test1. Notice it's returning void. It's returning nothing, right? I'm just passing in a parameter, t, and I'm setting test1 to t. Here I'm setting test2 also to t. These are all the same. I'm setting test3. And then I have a couple more methods down here. I have a getAverage method. It's no big surprise. It just adds up the 3 test grades and divides by 3. All right. It's returning an integer, so there is going to be some truncation there, but hey, what the heck. And then finally, I have a method called toString, which returns a bunch of information about that object, the name and their test grades. ToString is a special method name also. It's always used to return information about that object. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but it's also a special method name, toString. And that's it. So you've seen the whole thing now. You've seen how you create an object and run methods on it. And then this is the definition of my object. We're going to do a few examples of this because this is a little bit tricky. But I hope you hung in there for the whole video, and thanks so much for watching.